Republican Senator Jim DeMint, who's at the center of this fight and being criticized by many in his own party for being at the center of this fight and not accepting business as usual, something he points out quite exquisitely in The Great American Awakening, his big bestseller on this very subject. By the way, we did try to get someone from the SEIU to respond to this ad. So far, no response, but you know, hope springs eternal. Senator, good to have you.
Neil?
First off, sir, on the news of the day and whether we're closer to a deal or not, what are you hearing?
Well, Neil, there is a bill that has passed the House, as you know, the cut, cap, and balance bill. That's a very common sense. Let's cut some spending now. Let's cap it over 10 years. Let's try to move towards a balanced budget. And let the American people decide if we should balance our budget once and for all. That bill will come to the Senate this weekend. The Democrats are threatening a filibuster, but all we're asking for is debate and amendments. It's the only bill here that has a chance to pass before the August 2nd deadline. The President hasn't given us a bill. The Democrats in the Senate haven't, but I'm very thankful for the leadership of John Boehner and the House Republicans. They passed a bill overwhelmingly. I think every Republican supports it in the Senate. We might even have a majority because I think a few Democrats are willing to let us proceed to a debate. But the President, I believe, is really panicking, and the Democrats, the liberals think the Americans are stupid and they can run these ads. But the only responsible party in Washington right now is the Republican Party. We've given him the debt limit increase that he asked for. Standard & Poor's and Moody's will recognize this as meeting their criteria, so they won't downgrade our bonds. So Republicans have done all we can. We only control the House of the Representatives.
No, I know that, and you might argue otherwise, that it's possible to pass this in the Senate when the vote comes up on Saturday. Everyone else I talked to says that is unlikely given just the makeup of the Senate. But you're right, you could pick off some...
Neil, we're not trying to pass it. We're just asking for an open public debate on the bill for a couple of days.
I understand, but to me it looks hopeless. Now, so what I'm asking you, Senator, is whether you see any movement toward a deal that would be specifically to your liking.
Well, there's no deal. I mean, Tom Coburn said at our press conference for Cut, Cap, Balance today that the Gang of Six proposal has no chance of being part of the debt limit debate. The McConnell-Reed deal is not going anywhere. If it gets out of the Senate, it is not going anywhere in the House. Speaker Boehner has said today that the Cut, Cap, Balance bill is the bill that we need to be amending, debating. We need to be talking about it. It's the only core bill that we have. So there's no other bill. If the President wants to take us by August the 2nd, then he can continue to dismiss this bill. But I frankly think that they're starting to get some calls that Americans really think, over 70% believe, we need to balance our budget. So this is right in line with where I think America wants us to be.
Now, you mentioned S&P, the ratings agency that has had this planned powwow with Republicans today. It was going to be first House Republican freshmen, then I guess they extended it to Republicans, period. Who called for that meeting?
I'm not sure. I suspect, well, of course, Paul Ryan's been very involved with the numbers here. Jim Jordan, who runs the Republican Study Committee. We've got a lot of new leaders in the House, and I know they're trying to do this the right way. I know the media is trying to dismiss it, but this is a very responsible, well-written bill. They've compromised with the President by giving him the debt limit, and all they're asking for is some reasonable cuts, similar to what Moody's and Standard & Poor's are asking us to do. So this is not a partisan bill.
No, I understand that, Senator, but I just find it weird that whoever arranged that meeting with the S&P ratings folks, what the S&P folks are going to say is we risk, financial Armageddon if we don't raise this debt ceiling or default. The AAA credit rating goes away. So obviously, I would assume that it was meant to scare Republican members who were there what they risk to do.
Well, I don't think so, Neil, because if you read the statements that we've gotten from Moody's and Standard & Poor's, it says if we raise the debt limit without credible, significant, long-term deficit reduction, they're going to lower our bond rating. So they're not after us just raising the debt limit. They know we have to do that as part of this.
All right, putting some meat behind it,
yeah.
Teeth behind it. Well, let me get a sense, though. You've been a critic, as you've written it very eloquently in your book, about this sort of facade we go through when we constantly raise the debt ceiling and keep doing this. We're in this jam because we keep doing this. And when you go back through administrations, Democrat or Republican, 17 or 18 times through the Reagan administration alone. To what end? Because the debt just keeps piling up regardless. And I'm wondering what we solve with a quick agreement period.
Well, we don't need to panic and make a bad agreement. What we need to do is set the goals of how much we're going to cut next year, how we're going to spend over the next 10 years. Let the American people decide about a balanced budget. I know I sound like a broken record, Neil, and the President says we don't need a constitutional amendment to do our job. Frankly, history says we do. The debt limit is supposed to stop us from spending, but this is the 10th time in 10 years that we've raised it. So I think we're on the side of the American people here. Over 70% think we need to balance our budget, and so this is the time to do it. We can't borrow another $2.5 trillion and expect good things to happen in our country unless the world believes that we're going to get control of this debt.
If it doesn't happen, people always assume everything stops on August 2nd, and obviously these dates are moving targets, but I don't think they're going to stop taking taxes out of my paycheck. So
No.
the money keeps coming in, right? Now, what can be done to prioritize that money going out then?
Well, we're not going to default. I mean, we're going to pay Social Security and Medicare. We have those trust funds that can be converted to public debt if we need to cash out. That's not ideal, but we're going to make our Social Security and Medicare payments.
So when the President said, Senator, a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, I should point out, that those payments, Social Security, Medicare payments, a lot of them hit on August 3rd, I believe, are in jeopardy if we haven't raised this. You say that's hogwash?
That is hogwash. The only way they're not going to get paid is if the President decides not to pay them for political purposes, because the resources are there. There's no question that sometime in August that some government contracts, some payments for things that the government's doing could be delayed. Standard & Poor's could call that a technical default, but we're not going to default on our bonds and the debts that we have as a nation. We've got the tax money to do that. If the President wants to drag us through that to try to blame us for his bad economy, Republicans need to be prepared to take that fight to him, because we've put our best proposal on the table. They have put nothing. I don't know what else we can do but say, if you don't like ours, give us a proposal.
Senator, I wanted to flash to the big boards, and Pam and Frankie, if we could show this. We were up a lot in the stock market today, 152 points. If they're worried about a default or something even worse in the next 10 days or so, they certainly had a funny way of showing it. I know you don't like to talk much about the markets, but why do you think they're behaving the way they are? That this doesn't matter to them, or they think you guys are going to reach a last-minute deal anyway? What?
Well, they probably think we're going to reach a deal, and we probably will, but they also know we're not going to default on our loans. And Neil, maybe it's they're optimistic about the cut, cap, and balance plan. I don't know, but the markets know that we're not going to default. We're going to pay our bills. So hopefully they'll stay steady despite what the President does to try to create chaos in the markets.
Real quickly, your relations with Mitch McConnell, since you rejected his, I guess, brokered deficit get-out-of-the-way agreement.
Well, I appreciate Mitch trying to negotiate in good faith with the President. Now, I warned the whole conference a couple of months ago, and maybe I'm cynical, that I thought the President was just using the Biden working group to burn up the clock so he could create a crisis. It turned out that I was right, but I can't fault Mitch McConnell or John Boehner for trying to negotiate in good faith. But frankly, we weren't elected in November to make it easier for the President to spend money and increase our debt. This is a time Republicans have to take a stand. We've put a plan on the table that solves the problem. If the President wants to reject it, then he owes America his plan.
Okay. Senator, it is always a pleasure. Good seeing you again.
Thanks, Neil.